All right. So, hi, my name is Lydia Yusuf. I'm the director of Elmahaba Center in Nashville. And today we're going to be discussing college preparation and also FAFSA and scholarships, a lot of the questions that you have when discussing financial aid with your students, or if you're discussing with a financial counselor at a college. So today I have George Iskander with me, and I met George on Twitter. He's really awesome. I'll let him introduce himself because he has a very extensive resume and knowledge. So I don't want to skip over anything. So I'll let him kind of introduce himself and what he does.
أهلا وسهلا اسمي جورج اسكندر جورج اسكندر so I just graduated from college this year. I graduated from Yale University with a bachelor's in mathematics and physics, and I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Chicago. So I applied to college back in 2016, so it's all very recent for me, and I know that it can be a very difficult process, especially since I think it's very different here in America than in other countries. It's nobody really tells you exactly how to apply to college, and so it can be kind of difficult figuring it out, especially for students. So I really hope today we can talk about questions that people have and talk about how you can help your children prepare for college, how to secure financial aid, how to secure scholarships, and all of that. And again, I hope to help because I understand this experience because it's all very recent for me still.
Yeah. Thank you, George, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Lydia.
If you have a question, you can just add it in the comments, Arabi or English, and we'll ask George at the end. So George, kind of as a first question, what would you say is financial aid? I think this is a very weird term sometimes for people because sometimes it's not aid that they give you, but other things that are not exactly handouts. So what, in your opinion, is financial aid, and why is it important when you're applying to college to actually look up financial aid, not just like where is it ranked or what's going on? Yeah. Why is financial aid really important in making your decision for college?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So yeah, financial aid is essentially money that the school gives you, or the school will essentially pay for your tuition, right? So we all know that university in America can be pretty expensive. It ranges, but say average price is say $50,000 a year, and depending on a student's income, depending on how much money their family makes, the school will say, we see that maybe your family can't afford to pay for university, so we'll pay some of that cost, and you don't have to pay it back. That's the important thing, right? Because how do students in America typically pay for college? They typically take out a loan for however much their tuition is, and they pay that tuition off once they graduate. Once they get a job, they start paying it off, and it has interest, of course, right?
Yes.
So it's not free. But with financial aid, this is essentially a gift from the school where they will pay the student the amount of tuition to some varying degree. If a student really doesn't have a lot of money, they will pay everything. If a student maybe has some money, they'll pay half. It depends. And again, this is money that you do not have to pay back. The school gives it as a gift, and that's the end of the story. And it's important to research it beforehand because, like I said, university in America is very expensive. Tuition is rising every year. There are some schools where tuition is as much as $70,000 a year. This is more than some families make, in 1 year. So it's very important to research this because I think we don't emphasize enough in our society how difficult it can be to bear debt and for a long period of time, because people think I'll just take out this loan for $250,000, but that is something that students will end up paying for decades. And you have to consider that there's high interest, so it may not be something you pay off until like you're 50 or 60, however old. So it's very important to research financial aid, because if you can get into a school that gives you good financial aid, that means that's less money that you have to spend in the future, when you graduate, right? Like you can spend your money on other things, right? It makes life easier for you. So it's just very important is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I think kind of to tack on, like student loans are really high interest. So typically, if you buy a house's interest is like 3 or 4, whereas a student loan you're looking at between 5% to 8%, and I've seen even sometimes some people will tell me they have 12% interest. So, um, so it's really important that before you take out a loan, you know all your options. Like George was saying, like please research it, go to the university's website and see what scholarships they offer. So George, you are a Questbridge scholar. I actually, the first time I had heard about that was when I found you. And it's a really interesting program and scholarship. So, because I feel like a lot of people, when they think, okay, I can't pay 50,000, so
Yeah.
scholarships are open to me. I feel like that's 90% of us. What scholarships are open to me? The Questbridge scholarship is a really good one to know. Could you talk about that and like your experience and like what it is and what it covers, etc.?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm very happy to talk about it because it's a program that sincerely changed my life. So I'm very happy to talk about it in many ways. So, there's many scholarships that students can apply for, for college. And typically the process is this: students apply to college, then they apply to scholarships separately. Questbridge is it's a little bit complicated, so I'll try the best I can to explain it. And if you have any questions, please ask me in the chat or ask me after. I'm always happy to take emails or help any of your students with it. So essentially, it's a process where the scholarship and college application is combined into one, and it's specifically a scholarship program that's targeted to students who are either first generation, meaning that their parents did not attend university in America. So that was my situation, right? My parents went to college, but they went to college in Egypt. And it's for students who are low income, right? Like their family doesn't make a ton of money. As long as students satisfy one of these two criteria, they can apply.
Right.
And so Questbridge is unique because it's a very early program. Most applications are due in December or January. The Questbridge application is 2 stages, and the first stage is due in September. It's very early. But the benefit of Questbridge is that they give you more room to write in the application, and they ask you a lot of things about what it means they ask you a lot of questions about your financial status, your family status. So colleges have an idea of who you are when you apply. So it ends up giving you a slight advantage when you apply. And if you get a Questbridge scholarship, it's a full scholarship. You do not have to pay anything for the school. The school will pay everything for you if you get a Questbridge scholarship.
Yeah. That's awesome. The deadline for this year has passed, but this is for future years.
Yeah.
Which is actually really great because people can actually go and research. And also for people who are maybe first and second year students in high school, what are your suggestions for them? Especially if they're like, yeah, I'm not going to go to Harvard or Yale or University of Chicago. I just want to go to a local university next to mom and dad. But I'm still interested in scholarships. What do you think they should be doing as first year, second year, third year to kind of boost up their chances for a scholarship?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about it. So I think it's very important in every single year of high school to be involved in the community, either the Egyptian community or the, their high schools. So a lot of scholars. So the thing I think that many people have difficulty understanding is that colleges and scholarships in America don't just look for the highest grades. America has 300 million people. There's so many students with high grades who are high achieving. They're doing great things. But what sets students apart and what gets them scholarships is what they're doing outside of academics. It's the extra mile. What are you doing beyond that? So when you apply to scholarships and everything, they look for students who are, are they involved in clubs at their school? Are they doing community service? Are they volunteering? Students who are like, they're not just studying all the time, but, like they have a life,
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I think students don't realize this until it's sort of too late. And then they think, oh no, I have to join all these clubs to help me with scholarships and everything. So I think it's very important for you to allow your kids to get involved in these things from very, very early on. Try to encourage them, tell them these things are important. and this is something they should try to start in their first year and continue on, till they finish high school. And that will help them when it comes time to apply to scholarships. And the second thing I'll say is study hard for the SAT and ACT, because local schools sometimes do give scholarships for that. So I'm from New Jersey, and I know Rutgers will sometimes give out full scholarships. They'll pay everything if a student gets a high score on the SAT or the ACT. And this, of course, depends, where everybody is. If you're in Tennessee, it's maybe a little bit different than New Jersey. But getting high scores is never going to hurt you. You know what I mean? It's always going to help you going forward. So I say maybe sophomore year towards the end, start studying for those exams. The students have the summer, start studying for those. And also they should be doing things over the summer, like if they can, working or like something productive, like they're just not sitting at home all day. And I say in the beginning of junior year, maybe they should maybe look and make a list of scholarships that they want to apply to. And, you just look at the internet, talk to people, talk to your school guidance counselor, make that list and then save it. Because senior year, you don't want to say, oh no, I have to find the scholarships and then apply to them. If you have the list going into senior year, then it's, it's much easier applying to them. It's good to prepare is what I mean to say.
Yeah. I especially tell parents, please know who the college counselor is at your school, because they oftentimes have connections to universities, and they also have lists upon lists of scholarships. So if you're really looking into non-institutional scholarships, so scholarships that don't come from the college, definitely look into the high school and ask the college counselor for advice.
Agreed.
Yeah. What are your 3 tips for someone who's a 4th year? So someone who's a senior, they're right now applying. What are kind of 3 tips right now as they're kind of in the heat of it, putting in those applications?
Yeah. So I will say this. One, my biggest tip is really start early. For me, this was important because the biggest part of the college application is the essays, right? And for me, writing is not something that comes very easily. So I have to spend a lot of time writing and editing and changing. So if I start something very late and I don't have a lot of time to edit it, I know I'm not going to submit something that's very good or something that makes me happy. Every student is different, but I think it's never going to hurt to start early.
I'm glad you mentioned the essay, because I feel like often when I speak to high schoolers, that's the first thing they're like, oh, I'm going to gloss over it. I'll just spend, the next 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks before I apply on it. Which, your facial expression. Do that. Yeah.
Definitely start early. And I'm a big fan of the idea. Do a little bit every day. You can do all of it the night before, or if you do a little bit every day, like you write 1 new sentence a day, a few months before it's due, that's going to do so much more for you than if you start later. That's one tip.
Yeah.
Second, don't be afraid to ask for help. You need to get eyes on your application. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to notice them, but your friends are going to notice them. Other people are going to notice them.
Yeah.
If you have a teacher that you're close to, ask them to help with the application. Ask them, hey, could you read my essay and see if it's good? Your counselor can help. If you have friends who have graduated and are in college, they're very good at helping, because, they know exactly, they're better at writing, right? Because they've taken college writing classes probably, and they've been through the process. Ask them for help. It's vital. You're not in this alone, so reach out to your networks. And third, I would say writing the essays, like you said, a lot of people gloss over them, and maybe we'll talk about it later, but you really need to do well on the essay. And again, I say this is a cultural difference, because in other countries, like in Egypt, you get into college based on your essays, not essays, your exam scores and how you've done in high school. But here, you have to do well in high school and you have to write a good essay. It's not enough to just do one. So when writing the college essay, spend a lot of time, and you have to tell a story that's extremely honest about yourself. You have to write a story about yourself that you might even feel hesitant showing to others because it's so honest and personal. And that's a difficult thing. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but that is something important to do. And I think students should really aim to be honest and vulnerable and open when they write these essays.
Yeah, that's very important, because I think vulnerability brings your genuine self. Instead of, I think a lot of the essays I read are very, my parents came from Egypt, et cetera, et cetera. which is, I'm not dissing on that, but we have a large community here in Nashville, and if we're all applying to MTSU or TTU and we're all with the same narrative, it's not being too vulnerable to say my parents worked hard. So to me, this is a good start for an essay, but to actually question yourself to say, how did my parents work hard? What were their particular struggles? Because we all have particular struggles. So yeah, I really do encourage everyone, just like George said, to really, really focus attention and time, months on the essay, and really take the time to brainstorm, take the time to outline it, and then take the time to actually write it. So now I think the part that everyone's been waiting for, FAFSA. FAFSA is the big kind of kahuna for everyone for everyone who's applying to college, almost everyone. Can you explain what FAFSA is, and then the application process? Before you answer, I do want to say Elmahaba does not do FAFSA services, so we've received some requests to do the application. We don't do the application. We can definitely assist you with specific questions that you have, but we don't do it just because it takes your Social Security and your taxes and your vital information, and we don't feel comfortable having all that information on you on our own computers and such. So we don't help with FAFSA, but we definitely, FAFSA is very easy to fill out nowadays. And I'll let George take it from here.
Yeah, sure.
It's not scary, is what I want to say.
Yeah. There's a lot to say about FAFSA. So like, what specifically should
I think just like, what is it used for? So like,
okay.
When I fill out FAFSA, I'm done. Like, where does it go? What does it do? How does it benefit me, etc.
Oh yeah, sure. So FAFSA is a government thing. It's like it's managed by the federal government, and you apply for FAFSA because the government will give you a small amount of financial aid if you qualify. So the most you can get from it, it's not too much. It's like maybe $6,000 a year, which is still a decent amount of money, but it's not going to pay all the tuition, of course. But the reason you want to apply for it is, one, you get that money, and second, schools will ask you for a copy of the FAFSA, and then they will use that to compute your financial aid. So for my school, for example, I did the FAFSA. I got a couple $1,000s from the government. I sent it to the school, and then they said, okay, we have the FAFSA. We see your level of financial need, and we're going to pay the rest of your tuition and everything, right? So schools will use the FAFSA to calculate how much financial aid they want to give you. So that's why it's important to fill it out, because you get money from the government and you get money from the school by filling it out.
That's really important, because actually something that I hear all the time from folks is, I'm not going to apply to Vanderbilt because it's too expensive. But Vanderbilt technically is one of the more affordable schools here in Tennessee, because it offers 100% of demonstrated need. So if you demonstrate, like, I can't pay $60,000 for my kid to attend this school because I make $40,000-$50,000, Vanderbilt will offer you that aid. So actually, it's the more affordable situation, whereas Belmont and Lipscomb here in Tennessee will go ahead and tell you, even though FAFSA is like, hey, according to their taxes, they don't have $60,000, or I guess Belmont would be cheaper, maybe like $40,000 to give to you for 1 year of education. Belmont will say, okay, then you can take out a loan. As opposed to Vanderbilt will actually work with you. So that's really important, because I hear that often about, I'm not going to apply to Vanderbilt because it's not affordable. That's actually very wrong. And you should, I think a lot of the schools that are top 20 schools and Ivy Leagues actually offer very good financial aid compared to schools that you may think they have cheaper price tags, but then they make you pay that whole price tag. And I'm going to share my screen just to show the FAFSA website, so we can just go through it real quick. Okay. You can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So how do you apply to FAFSA is a question we often get. So a lot of people assume that they get it from the school or something, that it's just going to come in the mail. FAFSA, just like the ACT, is online. So literally FAFSA. And when you click, you're going to start a new one. If you are the first person in your family to go to a university, you're going to click to start a new one. My tips for you, one, you're going to have to create an ID for your mom or your parent, sorry, your parent in general. Maybe it's your dad. My dad helped me. So for your parent in general, and then for you. So you're going to have two separate IDs. You do need to keep both of those because every single year you are in school, you are going to apply for FAFSA. So it's really important that you keep those IDs. Do not lose them because it's a whole process to get them back. It's not just forget your password. And you have to, we messed up because we thought our FAFSA ID was the same for everyone because we assumed we'd have one ID for the whole family. No, there's one for your parent, there's one for you, there's one for your sibling if they go to college, and another one for the other sibling who goes to college. So please keep those together because you will have to do separate applications for them. And your parent will have to sign the forms online with their FAFSA ID. The other thing, all FAFSA is, it's so easy. It's so, I don't want to say so easy because my dad is self-employed. So I know it is a little bit hard if you are self-employed to plug in and kind of estimate what you're going to make next year when your kid's in college. So I will say if you are self-employed, it is a little bit harder to kind of estimate what your salary wages are going to be for the next year. But if you have already a determined salary, so you make a steady income or about a steady income, it's so easy. You literally go in, put in your ID, and then you put in your information to verify your identity, so your social security, your address, things like that. And then after that, you just upload your taxes through the IRS, and that's it. It's very simple. And if you want to learn more, FAFSA actually has a lot of good little YouTube videos about the process that are really helpful, that can like take you through each step. I'm back. That can take you through each step. So it's very easy. All you have to do, just make sure your taxes are in front of you so you can input a little bit of information. Your taxes from last year and your taxes from 2020. So again, like if you are someone who has a salary, it's much easier because you can kind of guess by December what you've made this year. If you're self-employed, I would encourage you to wait until December to fill it out, just so you have a better idea of how much you're gonna make for the year. So and don't feel like you have to do it right now. I know the application is open, and so many people are like, I have to be the first one to finish FAFSA and get my application in. It's much better for you to take your time. Again, this is federal government. Take your time. Make sure you got all the information correct, especially if you're self-employed. And I actually encourage people to do it during winter break. So, right, because we're Coptic, we don't even celebrate, or not really, December 25th. So December 25th is a very good date to fill out your FAFSA. And it's just good because you'll know what you've made for 2020. And of course, you'll know what you made in 2019. So it's very simple. You'll just use the IRS tool to link your taxes from the previous year. And just be ready with everyone's social security. So mom, dad, social security, your social security, and you're all good to go. It's a very easy process. And I think like George said, just take the time to do it. Just maybe take an hour. So don't, yani, lock about in everything. take the time to do it, because it does go to the government and then it goes to your university. The other tip I will say is that at the very end, it will ask you which universities do you want us to send this to. Please make sure that you put in the universities you're applying to. I know some people feel iffy about that because they say if I put in the name of the university that I'm applying to, I don't want them to know my financial situation before applying, etc. Even though they're technically not supposed to know it's supposed to be blind admission to your financial situation. But I understand that. Just please make sure that once you've been accepted into a university and you've kind of chosen where you're going to go, that you make sure that they have your FAFSA information. Because I'll guarantee you, they won't let you. If you didn't put them down on your FAFSA, then they're not there. They don't care. So it's your job to make sure that the financial aid office, hopefully this summer before your first semester, that they know that you've done FAFSA and that FAFSA information is available to them to make their decision. And always, if a situation should happen to you where something is confusing with financial aid, I haven't had an issue with FAFSA or even heard of situations with FAFSA other than like the one problem we had with our IDs. But that was our fault, kind of, to assume that, anyways. But I will say, I don't know a college student who has not been, sorry, my phone, who has not had an issue with the financial aid office or has not had an issue that they have had to take to financial aid. So please get used to going to financial aid offices. It's not awkward at all. It's their job. So please feel comfortable. I would strongly recommend that instead of walking into the office, unless you just want general information, that if there's an issue, email them, because the email sends a timestamp, and it also shows the person that you spoke to at what time, and what their response was. So that's very important. If you have an issue with financial aid, that you do it by email correspondence. I know I said a lot, but I don't know if you wanted to add or.
No, I just wanted to agree with everything you said. That's words of wisdom. So, I hope everybody was listening to when Lydia was speaking. And I want to particularly emphasize, it's very important to bother the people at financial aid. Look, this is a life, it's a serious matter, right? So, if they're, sometimes you can submit everything right and they'll make a mistake or something,
Yeah.
Don't be okay with that. You need to bother them and it's completely okay. Don't worry at all. And like Lydia said, they'll make mistakes. You just got to be comfortable with going to them and bothering them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they do make human errors sometimes. Keep in mind that they have thousands of people probably at a university that have some kind of scholarship, financial aid, loan, etc. So there are some issues that'll happen. Don't take it personally. Just email, say, hey, I don't think my bill came out right, or I don't see my scholarship here, or whatever. And again, make sure you do it by email.
Yep.
The number one tip. Most of the issues that I see are people who are like, oh, I walked into the office and I spoke to this person. I don't remember their name and I don't remember the day. I just know it was sometime in May and now it's August and I'm about to start school. Yeah. We don't want to get into those problems.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't take that long. So you're in graduate school right now. You're doing your PhD. What general tips do you have for folks? I think graduate school is a really awesome option for a lot of people. And especially you're in the sciences. So, and what's really cool about you is you're not in medical school. You're in graduate school as a physicist. So that's really a very different field. And I don't think a lot of people see getting a PhD in biology or chemistry. So could you explain kind of your process of going to graduate school in the sciences while avoiding medical school?
Yeah, sure. So, and if people have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those too. So I think, from a young age, I always knew I liked science. I always thought, I wasn't totally sure what kind of science, but I think in high school I figured out, I really enjoy physics. I enjoy math. That's something I want to study. And so when I went to Yale, they have a very nice major called math and physics, as in it's both math and physics in one major. I said, this sounds great for me because I'll get to study both these things. Um, you take the classes, you find it's very interesting. You learn a lot of great things. But I said, I don't want to just stop here. I really want to learn how to be a physicist. I want to do the research, because you can learn the physics, of course, but there's a lot of stuff people are doing out there right now. And if you want to be a physicist and you want to participate in that research, you really have to get a PhD to do that. So I became interested in that option. And so I applied to graduate school, and here I am. So I guess I want to emphasize a couple of differences, about graduate school and clear some misconceptions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I know abroad, in Must and in Europe, generally the process is, people apply for a master's first, they get the master's, then they apply to a PhD.
Right.
Yeah, in America you can do that, but that's typically very rare in science. Typically what you will do is you'll apply to one PhD program. This is a program where everything is in one. After 2 years in the program, they'll give you the master's, and then after that you'll continue in the program, and at the end, inshallah, you'll get the PhD.
Yeah.
This is very different, and also you do not have to pay typically in the sciences. So the nice thing is that I'm getting an income. I'm not rich, but I'm getting some income because the school pays me, and I don't have to pay tuition. And this is generally how it is for graduate school in the sciences if you do a PhD.
Yeah.
If you do a program that ends at a master's, then you typically have to pay tuition for that. So I just want to say those at first because I think that, it's very important to recognize the differences between how it is in America here and how it is abroad.
Yeah, for sure. I really like the point that you can go from your bachelor's to your PhD. I don't know if this is more of a science thing, but I see it a lot in the humanities as well. Like now, I feel like a lot of people are kind of jumping over the MA for obvious financial reasons. So it's a really very bold step, but I think it's a good one to know that there's now a shift. I think, especially in the humanities. I don't know how it's in the sciences, but how it's always been the sciences. But any last comments about like student loans, scholarships, anything, financial aid, going to college that you want to add? We don't have any questions, so we'll just make those.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really want to emphasize, I've talked about this before, so I'm just repeating myself, but I think it's very important to recognize how helpful things like Google can be, because look, I didn't know any of this before. Like, my parents didn't tell me anything, of course, and that's how it is, for a lot of us here in America. Like, your parents will try to help you, and I'm very thankful for my parents, but they don't know how the scholarships and school are in America. So I had to Google a lot, right? And you find a lot of stuff there. You search up scholarships for like, you'll even search scholarships for difference, and you'll find like maybe one or two online. You search scholarships for people in New Jersey, you'll find something. It takes a lot of time, but if you spend time, going on the internet and like really reading things and making lists and saving things for to look at later, you'll find a lot of things there. You'll find advice, you'll find scholarships to apply to, etc. And second is, I think this is general life advice, but don't be afraid to reach out to people. Like I'm a resource, Lydia's a resource. If you want, maybe like if you're curious about anything, you can reach out to us, and we'll try to try our best to help you, right?
Yeah.
Same goes for other people who are in college. Like if you know somebody from the community who has gone to college and graduated, talk to them because they know the process and they'll probably be able to help your kid out. So I'm just saying, reach out to people because they are sometimes the best help.
Oh, for sure. I think one of the mistakes I did is that before going, like when I was researching, I was so involved in like academics and like what professors, what's the average GPA, what are classes like, that I really didn't do research and asking people like what's the social environment like, and what How competitive is the classroom, or what does the coursework actually feel like? And I really think that it's a very valuable thing to ask people, because universities on their websites will tell you the best about themselves. So if you do only that research, you're going to be like, wow, Lipscomb is blah, 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 blah. And Vanderbilt is blah, 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 blah. But then you may find out that Vanderbilt is not for you, or Lipscomb is not for you, just based on speaking to someone. So that's something to also keep in mind in speaking to alumni. It's a really good resource in terms of research, just to like ask somebody, how was your experience? What were the classes you took, etc. It's something I wish I would have done because believe it or not, college is not just about, academics. It's not just about the classes you take, but also about the social environment and what's going on, what are the options that I have, what's the diversity like, etc. And those things really impact you. So thank you for bringing up that point.
Of course, and thank you, Lydia.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate how important the essay is. So we do have a program for editing college essays. You can text or email us for more information. But it's really important that all Coptic students and everyone in general, get their essays done in the next couple of weeks as applications start.
Inshallah.
Yeah. And Elmahaba also does an ACT course. The next round registration will open up in December. So if you're interested in joining, it's for 10th and 11th graders. Registration again will open up in December. And I think, and our college prep course for 11th graders will begin in the summer again. So if there are any 11th graders who they want to get ready early, like me, they want to get their resume and essay done over the summer, consider joining the class in the summer. George, do you have any last, I did the little spiel here, but do you have any last comments or?
No, I just want to say everything you said is words of wisdom. Just listen to it.
Well, thank you, George, for being here. I'm so glad that we got to speak to you and that I've introduced you as a resource to many of us, especially since you're a Questbridge scholar and also a PhD student. So I think a lot of people will learn from you from this video, and also they now can see that there's a Coptic person in Chicago they can contact if they need help.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lydia, for your service. You're a blessing to us all, right?
Oh, well.
But thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Bring the blessings. Yeah, we only can try. Well, thank you, George, and good night, everyone. We will see you next week with our general update with Ustaz Ashraf and Ustaz Yusuf. Good night. Yeah. Thank you, George.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.